Exploring the bizarre. Your e-ticket ride into the world of the paranormal. Strap yourself in as we traverse the universe exploring the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology, as well as other dimensions. It's time to take back the night. Now, your electrifying hosts of Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
We're wild in the jungle tonight. Well, at least the jungles of Pennsylvania and Ohio. Because our subject, well, it may not be King Kong or Mighty Joe Young, but it's those very strange cryptoids. Cryptoids in America.
Excuse you, Tim.
Yeah, well, that's what you get for eating Indian food an hour before the show. Indeed, I'm calling here tonight. I'm speaking from my basement lair in Manhattan. I'm on Riverside Drive, and hopefully we'll be headed downtown to my own digs in just a day or two if they get things prepared for the king of the jungle. But tonight, Tim, who we have on this evening? What's our topic going to be?
Well, our topic tonight is cryptoids, and we have Butch Witkowski from Pennsylvania. And I know I've talked with Butch before. I'm not sure, Tim, have you talked?
Oh yes. He was on our previous predecessor, the other show that I failed to talk about for some reason.
That's right. Well, and then our special guest panelist tonight is Rick Hilberg, back again from Ohio.
Indeed, Rick is an old timer, as well as myself, of course. We date back to the 1960s. Isn't that right, Rick?
Oh my gosh, Tim, yeah, that's right. We've been doing this for well over 50 years. Unfortunately, it's getting close to being 60.
Yeah, I keep trying to downplay that number.
You got to face reality, man. You got to face reality.
I swear. Try to play down that number. You know, it's getting really up there. I'm as old as ufology. Actually, most of us guys were born just around the time that Kenneth Arnold was seeing those crescent-shaped objects over Mount Rainier. I guess right. The pull of the objects must have been the magnetic force, gravitational force must have been a lot stronger than we realized. But Rick, we've seen many people come and go over the decades, and you and I are still here. You're still putting out the UFO Digest.
That's right. Yeah, Flying Saucer Digest. Yeah, for all these
and
years.
And how many issues have you out now?
We're 211.
211. So that comes to about 4 or 5 a year.
Yeah. And before that, I had the original UFO magazine that I know you started your INS report, probably late 61 or something like that.
Well, no, I think it was around 60. Well, I did a book called Inside the Saucers 1962. Right.
I still have
Which
that.
If you had, okay, you do?
Yeah.
I'll give you $10 for it. No, I would reprint it, except if I remember correctly, Rick, it was printed on a ditto machine.
Yeah, it was some sort of process. Yeah, right.
Yeah, with purple ink. So I'm surprised that the text has not faded into obscurity after all these years. If I were you, I would go out and make a photocopy of it.
Okay.
So that it doesn't disappear for all times. Now, the thing that is unique, I sold quite a few copies of that book. That was my first publishing venture, and I advertised it almost exclusively in Ray Palmer's Flying Saucers magazine. And as far as I know, it was the first publication to speculate that at least some of the UFOs were not from outer space, but were actually manufactured here by the Germans during the end of World War II. And I believe we even had a diagram in there of one of the craft, which has been reprinted many, many times over the years under different names and so forth. But that was one of my theories then, and it remains one of my theories now. And as far as I'm concerned, accounts for probably the Roswell incident and maybe some of the other early UFO reports. But be it as it may, tonight our subject is going to be Wolfmen and Bigfoot and things that will creep up on you at night. And Butch, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, sir. How are you?
Well, hanging out. We've had a little difficulty over the last few weeks. Had a unexpected fire in my apartment building, so I've been kind of living on the road with my Kindle and my cell phone. But it's a wonderful device. It works, and we keep on trucking. And we haven't done a show in a while on this particular topic. And I thought, well, geez, we'd call you up and find out what the latest. Now, give us a little bit for some of the listeners who may not be familiar with your background. You were formerly in law enforcement,
correct?
All right, give us a little background, an update, a little scenario, a bio of your background and how you got into all of this, because it seems to be a rather strange career move.
Well, in 1989, we were living in Arizona, in Tucson, and had some young fellows come over from the college, plant some saguaro cactus in the yard, and they and neighbor and a couple other folks were just standing in the driveway drinking some iced tea. It was still daylight, kind of hot, and up above a mountain, we all saw it at the same time, was a large craft of some sort. Very long, maybe 2 or 3 football fields in length, a couple 7 stories maybe high, burnt copper in color, and just hovering above a mountain. And rose up, and we watched it for a few minutes, and it just kind of rose up a little bit, kind of wobbly, and then just shot off to the west so fast that I could probably see a bullet easier. Called all the police departments, Sheriff County, Pima County, Sheriff's, Tucson Police Department, every media outlet I could think of, Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, every news outlet I could think of, and nobody saw anything. We all saw the same thing at the same time. I happened to look across the street right after it happened, and my neighbor, who was head of federal prisons out there, looked over at me and just yelled, "What the hell was that?" So I started looking into it, just from the curiosity end of it. Just couldn't believe that nobody else saw this thing. I mean, for the size of it. And worked at that for a little while until I just accumulated so much paper and books, it got ridiculous. I thought, this is just a waste of time. And then a few years went by, and I was watching something on TV that was showing UFOs. And the bug just planted itself, and it's been there ever since. So I'm at it now for 27 years. 27 years, yeah. And started my own group. I was with MUFON as a state section director, chief investigator, STAR team member. And even then, although I got to know a lot of folks, I wasn't getting where I wanted to be. It seemed more or less like the MUFON organization was turning out to be a data collection agency, and I wanted more than data, although it's important. So I started my own group, Pennsylvania UFO Research Center, in 2009. We're in 2 countries in Europe, Eastern and Western Europe, and we have 12 groups here in the United States, different states. And pretty much all of them are research investigators have been at it a long time, 20, 25, 30 years. And it works out real well. I don't have to sit here and try to decide something on my own. I can throw it out to the group and get a whole bunch of information really fast. We were mostly ufology, stayed with UFOs, but as time went on, we got involved in, I got involved in relations, cattlemen relations, abductions, cryptozoology, paranormal, and the whole gamut. So we've kind of covered all now, but it's very interesting. We've gotten a lot of information. We've debunked a few good cases that people thought for years were fact, and we go at everything in a forensic way to prove that it could happen, because I just can't rely on 50, 60-year-old memories. I mean, today's my birthday. I'm 69 today. So
hey,
listen,
all right.
Happy birthday.
Bring on the dancing girls.
And
he's a
or the
class of
dancing
47.
aliens.
And I can't remember what I had for breakfast. So I don't rely on those memories people have. So we try to prove it that it could have happened or could not have happened on a forensic way. So it just works out a whole lot better. And we gain more members every day. We are fully equipped. We have 2 mobile units that have everything from sat communications to building computers. There's nothing that we can go out and get on the scene and not be able to do. I mean, from taking fingerprints to putting something in a body bag.
Well, you certainly do have it well organized. That's why we value here exploring the bizarre, your research efforts. Now, Rick, you're out there in Cleveland, Ohio. When you started your investigations into the UFO phenomena, did you ever think that it would lead you to be, well, let's use the word in quotes, sidetracked into things like cryptozoology and Bigfoot and hairy monsters and dogs and weird things that one cannot explain that shouldn't be here but are?
No, I really didn't. I mean, I was a total nuts and bolts teen ufologist like you were back then. We thought, these things were actually from, you had your suspicions about some German secret weapons, and of course you had...
Jawohl, I did, yes.
Yes, and you thought they maybe were extraterrestrial, so did I, and yeah, it's funny how you get sidetracked, because it just happens when you're doing a publication, you see all these other interesting stories, that you get to I got into the clipping service. We all probably subscribe to that same doggone clipping service, and plus some commercial ones too, and you see these really great stories on this weird stuff, and you say, let me look into that. And then you start printing them, and then you start getting interested, and then you start devoting space in your publication to them. And it's just one thing leads to another. And that's how we get interested.
And where did it lead you?
It led me to insanity, I think. But no, seriously. No, it led me into a fascinating world. I mean, of all these strange things. I mean, we and the more I study UFOs and cryptozoology and all these other things, they're all tied together somehow. And I think this is probably basically what Keel was trying to say. It all comes from it comes from the same source. So we're actually, looking into something, and it's multifaceted.
Well, that's Butch. That's why I wanted to ask you. I mean, when you started with your interest in UFOs, I mean, did you, like Rick, did you ever imagine that you would branch out into some of the, as some people say, some of the more fantastic aspects of the whole phenomenon? I mean, cryptozoology, paranormal phenomena, it all somehow seems to be intertwined with the UFO phenomena.
No, I never did. I never put the two together. But as time went on and reports started coming in, not that I really changed my mode of investigation, but I tried to enlighten myself more in the other realms of the paranormal. And one of the things that I guess started me off in the crypto thing was with Bigfoot, there's thousands of reports. I mean, and do I think there's something out there? Possibly. Do I know what it is? No. Does anybody else know? I've gone through the DNA hoaxes and the hair analysis hoaxes and all that stuff. And, when Bigfoot couldn't be located, and there was no explanation for the one footprint. Then researchers started going to the interdimensional. Now Bigfoot is an interdimensional creature, or he's a pet of the UFOs, of the aliens, or he is an alien. So I just kind of try to stay on top of it. But look, there's just too many sightings that go back way too far to just dismiss it. So staying with an open mind and reading what I can and following who I can and investigating on our own, it took us to a whole nother realm, which was quite accidental. The gentleman actually thought he was calling some Bigfoot group, and he got a hold of me. And he gave me a report that just, I thought, well, okay, so this is the report. And after this report, I kind of put it out of my mind. And then within a very short period of time, to today, this date, we've amassed 14 sightings. We've gone on an expedition, which we had a lot of strange things happen. So right now, we're looking for a bipedal, wolf-like, 7 to 8 foot tall creature, which inhabits mainly and only at this point Pennsylvania heavily forested areas.
And how tall is this?
7 to 8 foot.
Ooh, that's a
7
big
to
one.
Now, the first description was from a gentleman who's retired Air Force pilot, combat pilot, retired commercial pilot, takes his 2 dogs for a walk up in the state game lands, 2 big Weimaraners. As he's walking up the fire trail, which he does quite often because he's lived there, hunted there all his life, the dogs start going berserk. They start tearing off, trying to get away from him and the leashes to get something to the right-hand side of the road. He sees nothing. He thinks, well, it could be a squirrel, could be a groundhog, could be a deer, could be a bear, could be anything, But these dogs, he said, were way out of kilter. I mean, they were actually digging holes in the ground trying to get away from him. He said, and then out of the right-hand side of the wooded area comes this creature. Never looks at him or the dogs. And I don't know about you guys, but I got 2 dogs wanting to get at me. I'm looking for a treat. Walks off and gets into the left-hand side of the woods and just goes away, and the dogs are still at it. So he gets the dogs back to the truck, retrieves a handgun, goes back up, walks into where it came out of. He sees nothing. No broken tree, branches, footprints, anything like that. Goes in the other side, he finds nothing. He contacts me that evening, and I said, well, what's your best description? And he sent me a drawing that he said, I got this off the internet. This is what it looked like, kind of, sort of. But I said, well, that's not showing me a whole lot. It just looks like a big, hairy dude. I said, what exactly did you see? And he says, best guesstimation is, he said, if you took Arnold Schwarzenegger and made him 7 to 8 foot tall and used his muscular body, very large chest, thin-waisted, heavy legged, normal arms, but not long like a Bigfoot would be, hands with claws, a snout. He said, now, the snout wasn't very big. He said, I would consider it to be more like a boxer or a pug. He said, no tail. And he said, that's what I saw. Covered in short, dark brown or black hair. He said, that's what it was. He said, never looked at me, never paid any attention. So then the guy proceeds to tell me that him and a couple of his buddies are going to go out the next day and hunt this thing with guns. My first inclination to that was, guys, you don't want to go doing that stuff. Well, they did it anyway. They left somewhere around 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning. He called me a little afternoon. I said, so what happened? He said, well, I'm going to tell you this. He said, it's going to be the last time we talk. I said, okay. He says, it's not Bigfoot. He said, I don't know what it is. He said, we got our high-powered rifles. We went in. We could see exactly where it came out of because there's the holes left by the dog. He said, we walked into the right-hand side. We went in about 25, 30 yards. We saw nothing, felt nothing. Walked in the other side. We got in about 10 or 15 yards. And he said, we all stopped at the same time. We all had the same thought that if we didn't get out of there, something really, really bad was going to happen. So he said, we backed out of there backwards all the way to the truck. He said, I'm never going back in those woods. I will never hunt in those woods. And this ends our conversation. That was it.
Now,
So,
how far was this from? Can we use the word civilization? I mean, was it
oh
way
yeah,
back in the
yeah.
woods?
There's
Yeah.
there's a small town of Penfield, which is we're talking about 4,700 acres of heavily wooded area here. And there's these little towns that sprout up every now and then, and I guess they're
Hmm.
back to the era in Pennsylvania. They're not very big. I mean, if you blink real hard, you're going to miss them.
Yeah.
And uh, then that was in November 2014. In July of 2015, we got another report from the same area. I mean, in the same area. Matter of fact, it's pretty much within a few miles, where two gentlemen are coming home from work. They're music teachers. It's just getting on to dark. They're on Route 22. They round a sharp corner and head for a straightaway that's about a quarter of a mile or more long. And they see what they describe as something that's kind of on its haunches, ripping up what looks to be to them a roadkill deer. As they get closer, he turns on his high beam lights. This creature stands up, and he said, I know what I'm looking at. And as he gets closer, he slows down to get a better look. His buddy gets a better look. And then his buddy starts freaking out and saying, like, go, 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 go. And as they fly by going around this thing on the outside lane, this thing is, he said, it was in full stance, ready to just do whatever it had to do. And I said, well, what exactly did you see? He said, let me finish. And I said, okay. So he says,
Well, okay, before we finish, we're coming up on a break here, and I kind of want to leave this as a cliffhanger because I know people will want to call in a little while and ask questions, and they'll certainly want to get their friends on the internet and tell them to tune into the show because this is quite a fascinating subject, and it's new reports that we haven't heard before. Wouldn't you say that, Rick? That this is pretty stunning information and valuable data when you start collecting all the reports that have come to us over the last course of the last decade or two. When I first started hearing of Bigfoot and these cryptoid creatures and all, most of the reports seem to have come from the Oregon, California.
Yeah.
And then then they seem to migrate easterly. In fact, Ohio was one of the states that was hit the hardest. I remember, I think it was in the 70s and 80s. There were quite a number of reports. I think even some of these creatures were reportedly shot at. Do you remember those reports?
There were a number of reports. Yeah, in the 70s and 80s, there was a big case that happened in the Minerva area back in.
All right. Well, we're
78.
gonna have to hold this, and we're on pins and needles and pine cones and all that stuff, and we'll be back in just a few minutes with more exciting tales from the bizarre.
Now back to exploring the bizarre with two of the most electrifying researchers in the paranormal. Your hosts, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
So, Butch, let's continue our conversation here. And I had one comment about the previous story where you said that the guy was intending to go in the woods with rifles and all to hunt the Dogman, and the only thing that I could think of was a line from Blazing Saddles where they said, "Oh, you don't want to shoot him; that'll just make him mad."
exactly.
Well, let's go ahead, Butch.
So what happens is, as you know, they get past this thing and they look in the rearview mirror and they see it stand up again over top of the deer, run across the highway and jump over the guardrails and down into what they describe as just a kind of a lightly wooded field, but leads to a heavily wooded area. So the gentleman gets home, drops off his buddy, locks every door and window in the house, loads every weapon that he owns, runs down to the basement, spends an hour and a half digging through some boxes of stuff that his grandfather left him, who died 10 years prior, to find a silver letter opener. tucks it in his belt, and sits up all night with a loaded weapon. When I spoke to him, he just freaked. I mean, it was like I thought I owed him money or something. He just said, I want to tell you something. He says, number one, I know what I saw. Number two, I don't want to hear any crap about Bigfoot. This was no Bigfoot. He said it had a slight, he described it as an aura around it, which was not white, but more silverish. He said, and I was looking straight at, and I don't want to hear any crap from you or anybody else. This was a werewolf. End of story. No more comments. And that's it. And I asked him if I could go up and interview him, which I'll be doing, but we got snowed out around here. He and the other fellow. And till this day, I mean, he said, I know what a werewolf looks like. He said, I grew up too, watching movies. He said, this was a werewolf. Period. End of story. And it was ugly, it was mean, and it wasn't afraid of me or the car. So after that, we get more reports. And some are historical. And then when I started doing research, I found the exact description of what these folks are telling us in newspaper articles in 1865 here in Pennsylvania. So Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio, clean up to the Canadian border. And we have these reports of the creatures following people. We have one in Franklin County where a lady and her husband go to a family cabin a few times a year just to spend a weekend. They were down by the fire pit doing the hot dog and marshmallow thing, and the lady noticed these glowing yellow eyes in the woods, which that wood line from where they're sitting is about 25, 35, 40 yards away. She's very familiar with that place. She's been there since she's a little girl. She hears this, both of them hear this scream, but she said it sounded more human than animal. So the husband, being the typical husband, he screams back. This goes on 4 or 5 times, and now this thing is getting angry. And it's growling and snarling and ripping and carrying on. And the husband decides, better part of hours, to get into the house. So they go into the cabin. She's looking out the back window, and this thing is pacing. Now she can only see the eyes and the shadow. It's pacing back and forth, keeping its eyes on the cabin. So she's enough of this. Everything's locked up, so they kind of retire for the night, which she said was not an easy thing to do. She gets up in the morning. She goes out, walks down to that area, and she says she was just up that trail. There's a small trail there for kids to play with. There's a swing that somebody made for the kids, and it's hanging off about a 10-inch branch of a fresh tree. I mean, it's not an old tree or a rotten tree. She said that's ripped off, laying across the path, swinging off. And she hears something walking toward her. She turns around, it stops. She starts to head back to the cabin. This thing starts to pick up speed. She is now on the back porch of the cabin, and she looks into the woods. The woods I'm talking about in all these areas are so deep and dark that from a roadway, when we were traveling up there the first time for the first expedition, 50 yards from the roadway is a wood line, and I could stand 50 guys in there buck naked, and you'd never see one of them. And again, she saw the glowing yellow eyes. In every report that we have, every one, there is no changing of how this thing looks. They all say the same height, the same body build, the hawk legs like a dog, the wolf-like face, the ears, the massive chest, the thin waist, the muscular legs, and the glowing yellow eyes in every one of them. Nobody says red eyes, blue eyes, green eyes. Everyone says glowing yellow eyes. So my wife, who has a Dollar General store, was talking to her manager, or one of her managers, and he, of course, says, so how's Butch doing with UFO stuff? And She said, well, right now they're looking into this supposed bipedal canine thing running around the woods with glowing yellow eyes. She said, when she said glowing yellow eyes, this guy, who was a full-blooded Cherokee from Oklahoma, pretty much freaks. He said, I need to make a phone call. And she said, yeah, okay, go ahead. So he goes to make a phone call. He comes back 5 minutes later. He says, Butch will be getting the package tomorrow. And tell him whatever's in the package, wherever he goes, he needs to be wearing that. And she says, well, what is he to be expecting? And he says he called the medicine man, the shaman, and the chief out there and told them what we were looking for. And they think we're looking for a skinwalker. So I got this medicine. And I got it the next day at 10 o'clock. And so the reports keep coming in. We're now up to, I believe it's 14. The last one being in the same area as the first two, where an older fellow, I should be saying that right now, at 69, right? Older fellow, walks. He lives right down the road from the entrance to this area, and which houses also a very large Boy Scout camp. But he lives down from the park ranger, and he walks up into a field that borders that Boy Scout camp. And he says it's a nice walk. It's flat for a guy like him. He said he doesn't have to climb anything, you know. He says on a number of occasions now, and he says 4 or 5 times over a period of 2 years, he has seen something tall, dark, shadowy, run through the woods, stop, run the other way, stop, and run into the woods. He said he's seen that on more than one occasion. Then he hits us with, now there's no way that this guy is on the internet. There's no way this guy has ever heard of any of these reports, because we didn't tell anybody up there about them. We went up there on the pretext of looking for Bigfoot, even to the park ranger. And he said, but the thing that's just kind of strange is, he said, when it stops and looks around, he said, it looks like it's got glowing yellow eyes. Now, this area is also going back to, in other words, there weren't any white men in Pennsylvania until 1754. We had 8 or 9 different tribes. They were at war with each other all the time. So these areas, especially in that area of Susquehannock Indian, was a very large group, very warlike. They were at war with everybody, Iroquois, Wampanoag, just everybody. So there were a lot of battles taking place. There are many sacred sites up there. Once a year in that open field, there is a powwow that's held, and powwows are only held on sacred ground. Which, being in contact now with these Cherokee out in Oklahoma, have told us what to do, what not to do, what to look for, what not to look for, and what we should do if we have an encounter. We went up there, met with the park ranger, again, under the pretext we were looking for Bigfoot, which he was aware there were Bigfoot reports. And so I said, you know, anything strange happening, you know, around? He said, well, other than the quiet, he said, last year, he said, there were some strange screams and howls coming out down from the swamp area, which is across the road from the park ranger's place. And he said, but, he said, that doesn't mean anything, because you could be this is a mountain, you're on the side of a mountain. So he said, it could be up there and down here. He said, no way you could pinpoint where it was. And I said, well, what kind of sounds did you hear? He said, just screams, guttural, really. Something really sounded pissed off. He said, I've been here for 12 years. He said, I know every animal in this place, and we've never had anything like that. I said, so when did this take place? Do you have a recall any date or time? Or he says, well, he said it was back in November of 2014 when I got my first report for Gab with the dogs, which is 2 miles up the road from where I was standing. So, questioning him a little bit more, I said, well, anything strange happening in the park that, you know, kind of out of the ordinary? He said, well, he said, we used to have coyote, 1 or 2 of those a year. He said, but now they seem to be running in packs. I said, coyotes don't run in packs. 1 or 2, 3 maybe, but that'll be offspring. And he says, well, here, look. And he whips out his count and he shows me this pack of 8, and he shows me a pack of 10. And I said, well, you know, those aren't coyotes. Those are coy wolves. And I said, they're very dangerous. He said, yeah. He said, we kind of figured that. That's why when we see them, we try to shoot them. I said, you may stave off 1 or 2, but the rest will get you. I said, they're running on a wolf mentality. He says, yeah. And he said, they came out of nowhere. They weren't here last year. So we spent the weekend up there. And some of the things that happened to us while we were there, unlike Bigfoot researchers that hear all this stuff going on, in a 4,700 acre park with one of the largest deer herds in Pennsylvania, bear, fisher, any ground animal you can think of, birds, raptors of all types, eagles, falcons, hawks. We heard nothing. Zero. Our recorders picked up no sounds whatsoever in that weekend. We were coming up on a full hunter's moon, which was only half a day away. We heard nothing. No howls, no coyote whoops, nothing. We could not keep a fire going. During the daytime, we could keep that fire 6 foot high, blazing like we were going to start melting metal in a furnace. Nighttime, that fire would go out in a heartbeat. With our weather station set up, the weather station was picking up changes in wind from north, south, east, west. Nothing in between. No north, east, south, west, or anything like that. North, south, east, west. When we came back and I talked to a meteorologist up at the University of Pennsylvania, he said that could only be, you would only have that happen to you, he said, if you were on Mount Everest because of the thermals. He said you would not have it in a heavily wooded area. One of the things we wanted to do when we got there was to place all our technology cameras and everything else out. And that was quickly quashed when we pulled in the park. When I saw that the woods are so thick, it's just unbelievable. Had one of my guys, I said, yell off 10 paces and just walk into the woods. I lost him at 5. We could see nothing. We heard nothing. We went out at night with thermal imaging cameras. Now, in that area, we should have picked up thermal images of deer, bear, mountain lion, squirrel, everything. I mean, there should have been signs everywhere. We had nothing. We were accompanied by a group from the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society. They had their thermal unit out, so nobody captured anything, either a picture or a video of anything that was giving off body heat. The only animal or that we saw, mammal that we saw, reptile, whatever you want to call it, was we were moving a table to set up some satellite communications on, and we had to move a rock, and under the rock was a salamander. That's the only thing living that we saw that weekend.
Everything else has been eaten now.
Yeah, well, kind of, I guess. But when I reported back to the Cherokee to tell them what happened, and there was kind of a long pause of silence when I mentioned the salamander. And he said, remember what the shaman said, remember what I told you. A skinwalker can change into anything it wants. It can become a bird or an eagle, or if it wants to be up high and look down. It could be a snake, could be stealthy. It could be anything. It could be a fish. It could be a wolf, mostly wolves. It could be a bear. It could be anything. He says, but I will tell you this, Mr. Witkowski. He said, whatever was there, was there. And I said, what? How can you say that? He said, first of all, the wind direction changing. That's unusual. I said, yeah. He said, the fire going out, we used an accelerant and we couldn't keep it going. And it was dry wood. And he said, the fire wouldn't stay lit. You found nothing walking around with your thermal imaging devices where you should have had something. I said, yeah, we should have had something. He said, you had nothing. He said, everything was where it should be, and that was out of your sight. But he said, the salamander, he said, being the only living thing you saw, what does that tell you? And I went, okay, gotcha. So that was our weekend. Oh, and the fact that I went into the truck to get something, come out of the truck and I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak. I mean, yeah. I thought I was speaking, but I wasn't. And when I mentioned that to the shaman, he said he was strangling you until he probably saw the pouch. Were you wearing the pouch? I said, yes. He said, the pouch identifies you as a member of the clan. You are a member of the Wolf tribe in Oklahoma. So being a member, you would have been a warrior. He should have left you alone. He said, how long before you were able to talk? I said, a couple minutes. That was it. Now we're going back again, but we're going back with more people and more technology.
Do you think it's possible that you can possibly photograph this or record some of the sounds
Well,
if
we
anything?
have we've upgraded all our recorders, and there'll
Hmm.
be one. We're going to mount a couple in the field. We're going to mount one on top of the truck on a parabolic mic. Um, Cameras, we've purchased a couple more cameras, all infrared. We have CCTV video that'll run 24/7 off a generator. We don't have to worry about batteries. Um, that's infrared and wide angle. So where we're going to set up with the other groups plus ourselves, we should be able to cover that whole wooded line, which approximately is maybe half a mile around. Even if we don't get anything but a shadow, it's still going to tell us there's something there. But if I had to be honest right now, there is something there. We just don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know what we're looking for. I mean, you guys being in ufology as you know, there's a protocol to investigate a UFO. There's a protocol to set up a star watch. There's a protocol to photograph and take evidence. But there is no protocol for this. I mean, there's even a protocol for Bigfoot. I mean, the knocking on the wood, the screaming, and all the other stuff. I mean, that's a protocol. So there are things you can go out there and do. But with this, there is no protocol. So I can't say what I'm looking for. I can describe what I'm looking for. I have 14, well, some are double, but the witnesses that have seen this thing. I have found tons of historical data in this state of this creature, plus the fact that, you know, this is not like a Bigfoot. You know, Bigfoot's, I always say they're a shy creature because, you know, people see them and they run away or they hide or, you know, they duck out of sight. And Rick would know better than I am. He's more adept at that part of this genre than I am. But this thing shows no fear. This thing has chased people. It has confronted people. It does not run away. It does not move, and it's not afraid to show itself. So, be whatever it is, we're going to try to get it at least on film.
Well, I mean, I know from all of my years of experience, chasing this kind of stuff with technology is that if whatever it is does not want to be seen, you know, on cameras, recordings, or whatever, it's not going to be.
All right. Oh, I agree. But we have nothing else to use. We have no other technology to use.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, I'm not gonna run around in 4,700 acres of woodland with all kinds of things in there that are turning me into lunch. But you know, sounds, recorded sounds. All our recorders are Zoom recorders. They're very, very, very touchy. I mean, they'll pick up the slightest thing. Like, they'll pick up a cricket. The boom mics, the Nikon and Canon cameras that we have, the infrared lighting that we have mounted on the truck, the GoPro cameras that are mounted everywhere on the canopies and tables, top of the truck, and the trees. We have two game cameras out that take a picture every 1 second, every 1.5 seconds. They take a photograph, daylight or nighttime. There's no flash. There's that dark infrared. So even if we get anything to prove that what these people are seeing, even if it's just a dark shadow or shape, whether it's on the move or stationary, and by all the photographer folks that I talk to, no matter what, if these folks see the yellow glowing eyes, the cameras will pick up those glowing yellow eyes. Now, they're not going to show as yellow, but they will show as glowing eyes. So we're going to try to do the best we can with what we got. I mean, like I said, I never read a book that told you how to do this.
Well, you know, I often wonder why these things, when we say things, cryptoids or UFOs or whatever sort of phenomena we're discussing, why they are seen in certain areas and then they may be seen over a period of time and then quickly vanish, just as if they went back to wherever they came from. In fact, in Ohio, Rick, we started discussing, and we'll get back to that after the next break, which is just coming up in a few minutes. there were numerous cases where these creatures were being sighted, or different kinds of cryptoids, perhaps. But after a period of time, they just seem to vanish. And has there been anything in recent years, or have most of the reports kind of faded into obscurity?
In Ohio specifically, Tim, or
Well,
I mean,
yeah, let's say Ohio. That's where you're kind of
well, I mean, I
centered.
keep a I keep a pulse on what's going on, here and there too through clipping services and whatnot.
Yes.
But the one thing that Butch experienced when they were on their watch was the Oz factor, as Jenny Randles, I think, termed it, in regards to UFO sightings. You're going after some cryptozoological creature or a cryptid, whatever we want to call it. Everything's quiet. There's no noise. It seems surreal, empty, and I think that's the phenomena at work. And that's why you're not hearing anything somehow or other in these areas at this time. The fabric of reality, let's say, is a little altered or tweaked somehow or other. And you might just see a salamander as the only evidence of life, and who knows what that means. But you don't see these other creatures. They're gone. They're absent. There's this eerie silence. But yes, right, what Butch said and what you said, Tim B., is these sightings are historical. They're in the same window areas, Keel called them. Year after year after year, you do some research, you go back 50, 60, 100 years, you'll see reports pop up. They'll pop up sporadically, and then they'll disappear for a few years. All over the country this happens.
Well, when we come back in just a few minutes, we're going to have our little commercial break here. We're going to delve even deeper into one of the most fascinating topics that we've discussed on Exploring the Bizarre. And this is Tim Beckley with Tim Swartz, and we will be back in less than an eon.
Exploring the bizarre. Your e-ticket ride into the world of the paranormal. Strap yourself in as we traverse the universe, exploring the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology, as well as other dimensions. It's time to take back the night. Now, your electrifying hosts of Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
We're back once again with a very titillating show this evening. And I was just thinking, I was sitting here petting Pumpkin, who's been seated in my lap all during the entire show, getting her hair all over me, but I love the little black kitten. I had an incident, and I don't think I've ever described this on the air. Back in the it would have been about 1975, I was in the town of Athens, Ohio. There had been a newspaper clipping in the New York paper, which is very unusual because they very seldom run saucer stories, even in those days. But, it was a filler sometimes. If the paper's got 2 inches at the bottom of the page, they'll throw something in that doesn't really belong there. Anyway, it was about an incident where a UFO had landed in a farmer's cornfield in the town of Athens, Ohio. So I was visiting someone who was involved in the publishing business in Cincinnati. So the towns must be relatively close. I don't know how close, but a rural area outside of Cincinnati. And I had investigated this case. Now, when we say a farmer's cornfield, it was really more of a corn patch than it was a field. It was a very small field of corn. And I never did speak to the witness, but I talked to the grandfather, and he said his 14-year-old grandson had seen something land in the corn patch, glowing object or something, and they went out there, and there was some indentions in the ground, like a physical trace case. And I said, all right, but it didn't seem to be. I don't know how it ever made it into the newspaper in New York, because it wasn't a very exciting case by any means, but I guess the saucer nests were just starting to get some attention in Australia. This was the prelude to the crop circle phenomena. And anyway, so while I was in the area, I decided, well, I had become pretty close friends with John Keel, and he had started telling us about these window areas. You know, when he was in West Virginia, he stood up on the hill and watched the objects come over almost every night. And of course, there were the Mothman sightings and the reports of glowing-eyed winged creatures in the town of Point Pleasant, which led up to the collapse of the Silver Bridge, which we've discussed on the show before. Anyway, so I decided, well, I have some spare time here. Let me canvass the neighborhood. And so I went out and I did a little bit of barnstorming. I knocked on some doors, and I found out some very interesting things. You know, one woman said, "Oh, I've seen a couple of strange things in the sky, but you know, we're really more worried or intrigued by this hairy creature that comes and drinks the water that drips out of the air conditioner in the back of the house." And I said, "There's a hairy creature that comes and drinks the water out of the air conditioner?" "Oh yeah, and sometimes you can even see, you know, the indentions that the footprints leave on the ground in the mud." Well, I went back out there, and you know, I couldn't really. It was a muddy, dripping old air conditioner, you know, and I really couldn't see any evidence. But I said, "Well, that seems kind of strange." I hadn't mentioned Bigfoot or any hairy creatures or anything like that. I had come to investigate UFOs, you know, and so I knocked on a few other houses, and lo and behold, everybody had a story, right? I mean, why? And it wasn't like the neighbors got together and had a UFO club or something like that. You know, they didn't know what the person down the road was experiencing, and a lot of them seemed to revolve around hairy creatures of one type or another. I say Bigfoot, but I guess that's kind of a catch-all term. Anyway, I was staying in this house somewhere between Athens and Cincinnati, and I was a guest, and they had put me up on the pull-out couch in the living room, and there was a huge picture window in front or in back of the headboard of the pull-out couch. And one morning I got up. I don't know. I stayed there 2 or 3 days. I wasn't there an extended period of time, but I got up and I happened to be looking out at this grassy area, knoll, backyard, front yard, whatever it was. I mean, it was not wooded, but it was rural, to say the least. You know, and coming from the big city, didn't see you know, I hadn't been used to, even growing up, didn't have. This was more like a kind of like farm country, I guess you would say, right? But there were no cows or sheep or anything like that. It was just kind of a, you know, rural area, lots of freshly mowed grass, and coming through the mist or the dew or the light fog was a creature, a cat, but it was an abnormally large size animal. Now, I don't know whether it was an illusion caused by the mist or the fog or something like that, but it was really weird. And I looked at this thing for maybe 30 seconds or so, and then it disappeared back into the fog, never to be seen again. Now, I can't tell you whether this was a real cryptoid or I didn't imagine it, but maybe my mind was kind of, you know, set to that particular alternate reality. Although big cats were not on the agenda at that point. Mainly they were big, hairy creatures. So I don't know how even a cat would have gotten into my, subconscious there and made an appearance. But it was truly strange. I don't think I ever really told anybody about it. But Ohio, during that particular period of time, during the mid-'70s, I think Rick had quite a number of sightings of weird creatures of one type or another.
Oh, that's for sure. We brought up this one particular case that really caused quite a ruckus. This was down near the town of Minerva, actually at a little place called Paris Township. It's just a couple miles outside. It was a hot summer night in, I guess, August of '78, and the Clayton family was gathered with some friends, and a little preface to this: the Clayton kids had said that they heard strange screaming noises coming from the woods there on more than one occasion. Well, anyway, the people were there. They heard some sort of strange noise. Okay, they went to the window and they saw something by the wood line. They said it was like 6 foot tall, and it was had really thick hair on it, and whatever the thing was, it got closer and closer to the house, and it was even ended up peering into the kitchen window. There was an outside, like barn light up, but not a barn, one of those outside night lights, and they could see it outlined in that, and they noticed that the typical smell. It seemed like ammonia and rotten eggs all mixed together. There were several witnesses, like 6 witnesses. They said that whatever it was like about 300 pounds. It was appeared to be black and brown, and they somewhat distorted night and a mercury vapor lamp. It had matted hair, covered the whole head and body. They really couldn't see any features on the face. People ran outside to see what the heck was going on, and it started moving towards them, and they all got scared typically and ran in the house, and several of the ladies got a little bit hysterical, and so they called the deputy sheriffs out, and they came out and investigated the area. They really couldn't find any evidence, but whatever this creature was, it was sighted for a number of weeks in that particular area. And as you mentioned earlier, Tim, there were people that came up, Bigfoot hunters, curiosity seekers. They all showed up. There were people with guns and everything. Right around the Labor Day holiday, it really turned into a circus. And a number of other neighbors saw similar similar beasts, over the next few weeks, and all of a sudden, boom, it stopped, never to return again, basically, in that particular area. But you know what the curious thing is, and the curious thing is that at about the same time, in 78, 77, 78, and 79, there were a number of good UFO cases came in Ohio. We had a number of good cases that were from the area around Minerva and Canton, in that particular area. There were really some strange multiple witness cases. And these creatures, wherever they are, whatever part of the country, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Oregon, whatever, they'll show up, and oftentimes when the people are seeing these crazy creatures, they're also seeing UFOs. And oftentimes other strange critters are seen, like the big cats. That's a big cat sighting like you had down there, Tim, back in the mid-'70s. We are now experiencing the fact that game officials are starting to admit that, yes, cougars are moving from the western part of the country back into the east again and repopulating. But for many, many years, we had big cat sightings that the game commissions totally poo-pooed. They said there's no way that this could happen. These have been extinct since the early 1900s. But yet people were seeing them, and they were seeing these black cats in conjunction with UFO sightings. And in Pennsylvania, Butch, back in the 60s and 70s, you had a number of Black Panther sightings from all different parts of Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania, that cropped up over a period of years and then seemingly disappeared. You very seldom hear anything about Black Panthers. A good friend of Tim Beckley and mine, Kurt Southerly, did a lot of research into these Black Panther sightings and wrote an article for me, years and years ago. And what were they? Who knows? But people were seeing UFOs, and if you if you start digging in there, you'll probably find some people reporting big feet, or the strange werewolf type things that Butch is talking about, or the dog.
Well, remember Sherlock Holmes had the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yes,
and that was, in fact, we have our own version of that book. I believe it's called Hounds of the Baskervilles, and Nick Redford did a very lengthy introduction to the original story. You can find the book on Amazon. It's by Arthur Conan Doyle and Nick Redford. What a writing team! But there were
two classics. But yeah, look at black dogs too. Remember back in 1973 when the big flap hit in late August and in September and went into the fall. It started in the South. There were numerous reports of people claiming that they saw UFOs land in Georgia and saw black dogs running out of them, large black dogs.
Well, no, I know you.
Yeah, all kinds of crazy critters seem to be bunched together. They seem to travel in the same circle somehow or other. Where you're going to have black dog reports, you're going to have Dogman, you're going to have Bigfoot sightings, you're going to have UFOs, you're going to have mystery cats, you're going to have strange off-the-wall creatures, all kinds of things.
Hey, now, Tim, in Indiana, have you had reports like this?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, practically every creature that you've been referring to on this show, has been seen in Indiana. I mean, just
lives in your neighborhood, right?
Yeah. Well, see now, here in southwestern Indiana, we have been getting reports of a cougar, and they actually took it was like a what do you call it, a trail camera. Got a picture of it not too far away from here. But you go a little bit west from where I live along the White and Wabash River. There's been numerous sightings of Bigfoot types of creature. You had the Rising Sun, Indiana cryptid creature, which exhibited almost paranormal types of powers. I mean, it would appear in a chicken coop, and all of the chickens would be found, completely ripped apart, but then it would disappear in a flash of light and then appear completely on the other side of the yard, almost, instantaneously.
No way. When was this?
This would have been like around 1968, 1969, I think, Rising Sun, Indiana. At that time, I mean, there were a number of
Not a rising sun if you were a chicken, I guess.
No. Well, and that's just it. A number of the, hairy hominid sightings here in Indiana, a lot of them involved the destruction of chickens, other types of farm animals, the smaller ones, goats, sheep, things like that.
Well,
very reminiscent to the mutilations,
I wouldn't worry too much. Donald Trump has promised he will protect us all. He will build a wall.
I don't think they can build a wall high enough for those.
Or a giant chicken coop, I suppose.
Well, Tim, I've actually found large footprints in the mud near Vincennes, Indiana, close to the river. It's been a number of years ago. The people in the area have been reporting seeing, something tromping around. And when I went out there, I mean, you could see, I mean, these were, naked, bare feet of a very large, looked like human feet, but a lot bigger than anybody I know personally.
Now, was this when you were working for the did you cover this for the local news?
This was just before. I was still in college at the time. I went to a small school in Vincennes, Vincennes University, and the area papers were reporting, these sightings. So, I went out there, to take a look and took pictures, and I have them still somewhere, but God knows where they are in my vast collection of files,
So now, yeah, go ahead.
I saw a weird creature too. You had your little happenstance when you saw that big cat. Well, this is some of the critters that typically show up, and it's similar to a case that I alluded to before that happened near Ligonier, Pennsylvania. But anyway, this was Christmas Eve 2012. It was just about daybreak. I was in my car. I was heading up to a local supermarket, taking my little shortcut through the Berea, the little college town where I live, heading up to the Giant Eagle supermarket. And I'm proceeding down the street, and from the right side to my left, it looked like a cat was running out in front of the car. So I really hit the brakes really fast, slowed down. I wasn't going that fast anyway, but it wasn't a cat. It was like a sausage-shaped creature, dirty orange in color. It was a tubular thing that crossed, right in my headlights.
Was it like a breakfast? Was it like a breakfast sandwich or something?
No, no, but there was no flying, Big Mac or whatever. No, it was just, it was a thing. It was a little sausage-shaped, thing that I mistook for a cat at first. No arms, no legs, no tail, no head, nothing like that. Just a little dirty orange sausage that went right across the road.
Whoa!
And it was gone.
I want to see an illustration of that.
No, okay.
Well, it sounds like one of was it Trevor Constable's Critters almost?
Yeah, Critters. Or as a matter of fact, I'm trying to think. Christopher O'Brien, when they did the Mysterious Valley thing out there, he called them prairie dragons. People would see these things out of the corner of their eyes, sometimes even in houses or outside or whatever, just little amorphous-looking things that would just, zip around and, they were gone.
That's funny, Rick, because years ago I was being interviewed on a webcast, and the host, and I wish I could remember his name now. He told me a story where he was sitting under a tree outside one time reading a book, and he saw something similar to that. He says it was tube shaped and floating in the air past him. He said it was about like 3 or 4 feet long, like maybe about a foot in diameter. But he said it was rather whitish and translucent, and it undulated. He said almost like a caterpillar through the air.
Well, I remember we published on the front page of the UFO Review, the newspaper that I used to put out. There was a woman. Now I don't know whether she lived in Santa Barbara, but the photos were sent to me by Bill Cox, who published a pyramid guide, and he lived in Santa Barbara. But there were these weird worm-type objects floating in the sky. Now, we're not talking about the ones from Mexico, which look awfully similar to balloons, which may or may not be balloons, because I've seen some of the photographs that were taken in New York that were supposed to be balloons, and when you blew them up or you watched the video in slow-mo, they didn't look like any balloon that I was familiar with. But these things were huge. I mean, we're talking huge and just worm-like, 2 or 3 of them cascading across the sky. Very, very strange. Tim, did I see a question just came in?
Yeah, we can start on this question, and we got a break coming up in about 3 minutes. So, but we can start on it. Trevor from Texas. He asked, "What do Butch and Rick think about all of these Finding Bigfoot shows, as well as a guy named Dyer who faked killing a Bigfoot?"
Well, they never find Bigfoot. That's all I could say.
Right. Well, what Rick, Butch? I mean, what do you think about this question?
Just remember, guys, it's reality TV.
That's right. I call it tabloid TV.
Yeah.
Lurid
tabloid.
And it's not even very good. That's my problem with it. The funniest one has to be the hillbillies. The guys that are always, I mean, I can't believe that that's presented with a straight face, right? But these guys have come closest to capturing Paperman. I don't know, all kinds of Mothman. I don't even know how he ended up wherever they are, but they present certainly a factual encounters with these objects. I just find their show hysterical. I can actually watch part of it. Most of the others are like watching the Ghost Hunters. They're unwatchable just because they're so boring. And I hate anything that's taken with night vision. I mean, how can you stand to watch 55 minutes of something shot in green screen? I mean, it's just...
It hurts the eyes and the brain.
I guess all of us agree on that one, don't we?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's not like we deserve a show of our own, But at least, there have been a few shows presented over the years that have. I think UFO Hunters was pretty good. I have no objection to that, although I know a lot. You can't do a show for 4 years and not have a couple of episodes that are flops or are not done, properly or up to the what the people in the documentary would like to be shown as. You're going to have but. And also, too, there's one that was on the Science Fiction Channel. It was a Fact or Fiction, where they actually tried to duplicate, some of the episodes and the phenomena. And I think they did a real service. I think they did a fairly good job.
Oh, yes,
and of course,
yes, that's right.
Yeah, okay. But those programs are no longer on the air. Just the terrible ones are on. You can turn on the terrible ones every week. No, I was on one today, actually, on 2 episodes of Mysteries in the National Park on the Travel Channel. It was shot 5 years ago, but it still pops up from time to time. And I was on for a big 10 minutes because normally if you get about a minute and a half, you're lucky. But I guess I was the big authority on paranormal phenomena in Hawaii. And here comes that thunder and lightning, and it's Thor.
Now back to exploring the bizarre with 2 of the most electrifying researchers in the paranormal. Your hosts, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
Here we are in the last segment of Exploring the Bizarre. And Butch, I wanted to ask you, with all of these reports, especially of the wolf-like cryptids, now, has anybody ever reported being attacked by these things and injured?
We found 4 reports, but we have to verify them first. One guy was attacked while mowing a field, mowing down a hayfield.
Mm-hmm.
And another was a lady and her husband stepped out of the car. The car had some kind of issue, and as he raised the hood and turned around, this thing was right there. And he kind of pushed it away to get away. Well, it grabbed him and caused a pretty serious facial laceration. The other one is a gentleman was chased while he was hunting. He fell. As he got up, the thing struck at him and required some stitches on his back. And the other one, the last one we found, was a family on a picnic. And the family dog went after this thing. It pretty much ripped the dog in half.
Mm.
And then as one of the gentlemen at the picnic went after it with a large stick, branch, whatever he picked up, it took it out of his hands and hit him in the face with it. knocked him unconscious.
Oh, my gosh.
Just walked away. But again, we need to verify these before we even go any further with them. So I got to get a hold of the police department, fire department, get records, do a FOIA, see if they were actually called out on this ambulance association, whatever.
Well, okay, now, so then it makes me wonder then along the same lines, in some of these areas that seem to have a proliferation of these reports, have you seen any mysterious disappearances of people? Sort of like along the lines of, David Pilati's missing 411 type of thing.
Yeah, we have. But getting that information from law enforcement that's already predisposed to give you a storyline is a little tough. But talking with some locals in that area, there have been people missing in that area over time. Now, some people say, being that it's 4,700 acres of very thick, vast, land, they could have been taken by a bear or a mountain lion, or they just would have walked themselves to death, or just, got lost, and that was the end of it. But nobody's ever been found. And I think the one gentleman was telling us from Penfield Theater that he recalled over time about 15 or 16 people turned up missing that were never found. Some from the area, most were not from the area.
Well, and you would think that if some of these disappearances were the results of bear, mountain lion, that they would be found. I mean, most of the time, right. These people aren't eating bones and all.
Right.
There's all. I mean, usually they're just mauled.
Right. And when we asked the game warden of England, the park ranger, about that. And he's a federal park ranger, so he's one of them gun-toting dudes. He said that he's heard the stories of missing people in the area. There hasn't been any encountered in the area that he's responsible for, but he says, they could be. He says, we covered this whole 4,700 acres of heavily wooded area, and he said there have been mishaps like hunters shooting themselves or people falling out of trees trying to get a bird. He said a lot of dumb stuff, accidents.
Right.
He said, but missing people, he said, yeah, he's heard the stories. He said, but they're not going through his office. But like Dave said, like Dave Pleddy said, they go through their office. I'm not going to tell you.
Now, how about any reports of UFOs in the same area?
Right now, in that area, that whole area has been inundated over the years. I can go way back, where we found sightings of orbs reported, not only through MUFON CMS, but through Newport, Peter Davenport's outfit. I mean, right now, here in this part of Pennsylvania, central and eastern Pennsylvania, orb and triangle reports are they're everywhere. I had one of my researchers on his way home from work. He's a police officer, and he followed one for about 10 miles. And he said then it just went away. But he said it was huge. He said it was like a flying aircraft carrier.
Now, describe these orbs to us, because a lot of people think that, they're just dust on the lens or raindrops or caterpillars or insects.
Most orbs encountered, and we've gotten pictures of a couple, are high in the sky or low in the sky. They are fiery red and orange, glowing. Some are white and almost translucent, where you could see things moving around inside, almost like a lava lamp. I'm sure you guys all remember them. And they're either very fast moving or they're extremely slow. And when I say extremely slow, we have one documented where it was seen in one part of Berks County, Pennsylvania, and another part of Lancaster County at the same time, and following the same route. And then we had people in upstate New York reporting the same exact same thing at the exact same time. So it was very high in the sky, but very slow moving.
This brings. I'm recalling now. I did a telephone interview many years ago with a gentleman who saw a Bigfoot in a giant bubble. Now, you may laugh at that, but it was a very serious account. And I remember he even did a drawing of the creature. When I say bubble, it wasn't more like, I guess, a craft type of vehicle than an actual bubble. But here was the hairy creature right in the middle of this bubble, this giant orb. I don't know what else you would call it.
Translucent sphere.
Yeah, good, Tim, very good. But there's so many bizarre reports out there. That's why we call our show Exploring the Bizarre on KCOR Digital Radio Network. But there are so many bizarre reports out there that you can't really put a handle on this. I mean, it's just like if you take all these reports at face value, something very strange about our planet. I guess that's why John Keel did a book called The Strange Planet. I think that was one of his titles, if I recall. But something odd is going on in the neighborhood. That's for darn sure. And it seems, I don't know, would you guys agree? It seems to be getting stranger, and it's kind of ratcheting up the bizarreness of all of this.
I think it's always been bizarre. These things have been going on. It's just that they're getting more attention now. There's with the internet and with all the the tabloid TV shows on, and people are looking for these strange things. But it's constant. It's roaring along for years and years.
We had one up near the Ohio-Pennsylvania line where a gentleman had stopped to spend the weekend with his brother, who was at college. And they were out on the porch smoking a cigarette, and he just happened to have his camera right inside the doorway. sliding glass door, and this thing came above and was hovering above the biochemical lab, and it stayed there. And he reached inside, grabbed the camera, and got us two very very good shots. And we have them on our website at u4cop.com. If they get down to photographs, they'll see it was a very large. He said, in size, probably the size of a Volkswagen, a little Volkswagen. It just hovered there. It was silent. It was very bright. It's a fiery orangey reddish color. It was spinning very slowly. It stayed above directly above the biochemical lab, which is run by NASA. And 6 doors down is a FBI office, field office. When he got a hold of the police, they kind of blew him off. So he went to the local FBI office there, which is right down like 6 doors away. And they blew him off. And he just thought it was just strange that he and 2 other people made this report, he being the only one with a photograph, or 2 photographs, taken with a very, very good Nikon camera, and not digital, film, 35 millimeter. And when he sent the pictures, I was just in awe that somebody actually got a very good close-up picture, because from where they were standing to where that thing was positioned over that building was probably less than a city block.
Now, were there any other witnesses to it, or?
Yeah, there were 2 others. There was
there were.
A taxi cab driver who was just sitting outside of his cab drinking a coffee. And we did get to interview him, and he told us exactly what the other guy said. And I don't share information from one witness to another, only because I want to get the fact. And the other one was a gentleman who cleans up in a restaurant, which was directly across the street from where this happened, and just happened to be mopping the floor in the front of the restaurant when he saw it, and he watched it in its entirety till it just kind of shot straight up into the sky.
Well, that has got to be one of the strangest. And you say this was in the middle of town, or it was in a populated area?
Yeah. It's a little college town, and it was bizarre when the guy started telling me that. And then when he sent me the pictures, I like, well, I guess he knows what he's talking about. And,
well, I want to. You say, and this is on your website.
Yeah. I picked a copy of the pictures on the website. Yeah. And down the bottom. Where it says photographs, I put in photographs there, just Pennsylvania side.
What is the website again?
www.u4cop, UFO RCOP. UFO Research Center, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And also too, there is Tina, our producer and engineer, always puts links up from our guests to their website and Facebook page and Twitter and everything. So if you go to the KCOR Radio.com website and you scroll down to tonight's presentation, you will find a direct link to the website, because I know as soon as the show is over, I'm going to go over there and take a look at these photographs.
Yeah.
I haven't even. I mean, that's most lights in the sky are not too intriguing, but this certainly sounds more than just your typical little speck off in the distance.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the photographs right now, Tim, and I tell you something. There's some really fascinating pictures here.
They're all Pennsylvania. The photo I'm talking about is in the second row, first one, the bright red orange orb.
Oh, okay. Wow, that is that is definitely a bizarre looking photograph.
Now, would you say that now I would have said going back. Rick, I would say 30 years ago, but now we're talking 50, 60 years. Ohio certainly was a top state as far as the UFO reports went at the time. Now, I don't know whether that was because there were more reports or there were a lot of active UFO groups collecting reports.
It's probably a little bit of each. Yeah. But Ohio is still one of the top states as far as UFO sightings are concerned, and creature sightings and unusual things, orb sightings too. We've had a ton of orbs being reported around here for years and years. As a matter of fact, my family had a summer cottage just on the Ohio-Pennsylvania border off of US 322. And we had an orb that I never saw it because I was asleep. They couldn't wake me up at in the middle of the night. It would kind of float by our property and go from the east to the west. My grandmother saw it, my mom saw it, my dad saw it, and I missed it every time. They couldn't wake me up in time. But this went on for several summers. A fiery colored orb.
And how large was the orb?
3 or 4 feet in diameter, they said.
Because, this kind of is reminiscent to Marley Woods in Missouri. Ted Phillips has been studying. He's been on our program several times. And, of course, he started out as a pretty much nuts and bolts researcher.
Working with Hynek.
Dr. Hynek, right?
Yeah.
And I think over a period of years, he actually collected something like 4,000 UFO trace cases.
Yeah,
he had
a ton of them.
Test tubes full of soil and debris and God knows what else. Pretty inconclusive, I think. I mean, some of the things were of soil that shouldn't have been in that area at all. But nothing you could really prove that were. I don't think it was an extraterrestrial craft, but little by little,
nevertheless.
Strange nevertheless, yes.
Yes.
And little by little, he began to realize, because of the nature of the reports that were coming in, that, heck, these couldn't possibly all be, spaceships from some other planet, if any of them were at all. And in Marley Woods, I know on the show, which you could find archived, the KCOR radio.com network, or on YouTube at Mr. UFO's Secret Files, just look for Ted Phillips. He talks about how these objects are anywhere from baseball-sized to, I think he said there was one 30 feet in diameter. That's pretty large, right?
That's a big one.
And I guess some of them now are going into people's homes. Like they're not just being seen out by the barn; they're being seen inside the barn. And and around different places. So it's an ongoing phenomena. I mean, it seems to be something that I don't know. You can't really say escalating or not, because we don't really have enough history behind us to tell us a lot of the proponents of the objects here. So or the phenomena itself, and obviously these things outlive or outlast any of the researchers in the field, because I know, for example, like in Pine Bush, New York, these reports go back, and Brown Mountain, North Carolina, of course.
Yes.
These reports go back, hundreds of years, long before accurate written records were being kept. They were kind of legends and passed on by word of mouth. And it's only been since maybe the 1920s or the 1930s some of the press reports started appearing.
Well, we've been down to the Brown Mountain Lights, and I'll tell you what, that's really something to see. That is spectacular.
Hey guys, we got a question from Kathy from California, and she says, seeing the guys have been in the field for a while, what's your take on Hillary Clinton being elected and the possible release of UFO files? Do you think anybody being elected president would be able to do anything like that?
Oh, that's such a hot potato. Nobody's going to touch that.
Well, Kathy wants to know.
Oh boy. Well, I'll pass that on to others to the voice.
I would say no.
Yeah.
I'm going to say no. Nobody.
Yeah, I doubt if anything's going to be released. As a matter of fact, I think Jimmy Carter even tried to get some information released, and they told him basically to go fly a kite. And he was the president of the United States. So,
we do know that Grant Cameron has been on the show, and the Clintons they do have about 1,500 pages devoted to the subject. I mean, there was some interest in this, and I blew a good chance. I was walking down the street where I live in Manhattan, and Bill Clinton was coming down the stairs of what I thought was an embassy, but it turned out to be a fast food place. And he looked directly at me, and there was a small crowd of people on the sidewalk, waving and saying hello. And I should have burst out with, like, tell us what you really know about UFOs. But I guess I was a little too intimidated by the Secret Service, or maybe it was the men in black that were surrounding me. But of course, he has talked about it, and so has Obama talked about it on the air. But how could you go on the 6 o'clock news or CNN and bring up the topic, because there's so many elements of it. What could the government possibly say? You know what I would say if anybody asked me? Go read a couple of Tim Beckley's books.
There you go.
And make up your own mind. Where it's like telling somebody, are you a religious person? What do you think about the Lord or Jesus? Oh, pick up the Bible and make up your own mind. I mean, I don't even know really why we've got to go and convince people. I mean, I don't see that great evangelistic, reason that we've got to go out and knock on people's. I mean, I want to find out for myself, basically. I mean, that's why I've been doing this for 60 years. Whether anybody else believes or not, it's not of my, it's really none of my business. And people say, oh, when you go to cocktail parties, do people like guffaw? Well, how many cocktail parties do people really go to these days? You're talking about a couple of people coming over with a big bottle of wine or something. I don't push. I've never pushed it down anybody's throat. If you want to listen to a couple of good stories, well, that's fine. If not, go about your business and talk about the stock market, which wouldn't be any of my friends either. But yeah, I don't know. But no,
Well,
anyway,
I don't think any elected official would be in the know. I mean, if anybody is keeping any secrets, about the UFO phenomena, they're not going to let somebody who's elected, going to be in office, a couple of years, 4 years,
Let's tell Donald Trump.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, he told the Pope off.
He'd make sure that we were not invaded. He'd build a big wall around the planet.
Well, the Pope just got after him for that, and it was on the news today about the building walls, and
Keep your hands off those aliens. That's all I can say. Hey, we're winding down here. And it has been a particularly fascinating show, and I know and I use the word in quotes, learned an awful lot. But certainly we've got a lot of new information out there that has not been broadcast before. And I want to give our guest here the opportunity to tell us what they have, what they're working on, what plans they have for the near future. And so, Butch, let's start with you. Help people find out about your work. Are you giving any lectures, putting together any seminars?
We have, tomorrow night I'll be on Coast to Coast.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have conferences scheduled in October, in May, in July, all here in Pennsylvania. We publish those all on our website, so we give people plenty of notice of them. There's going to be a future meeting weekend that Eric Altman is putting together in May. It'll be a 3-day seminar down in the middle of the woods in Fayette County. Fayette's noted for its many Bigfoot sightings. So that, and we just keep slugging along. We've got 2 more expeditions heading up into those woods to see what we can see. And
well, we hope you come back.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, on the show. I mean, yeah.
Oh, well, I'm just.
Oh, yeah.
Look, if you see me running out of the woods.
There you go. There you go. And Rick, how about you out there in the Cleveland, Ohio area? Are we going to have another conference this year?
I don't think so. No. There's going to be a MUFON of Ohio conference, though, coming up down in Ashland in June, which is going to be interesting. But that's beside the point. I'm still working on Flying Saucer Digest. We're going to celebrate our 50th anniversary in 2 years, and we're doing special things in the issue to kind of celebrate that fact. And we're going to be reprinting one of our booklets from 80-something or 70-something, called Around and About the Saucer World, which is a collection of some of the columns I did for years and years and years.
Now, yours is the only printed publication.
Yeah, just
I
about the
believe.
last
Yeah,
one in
yeah,
the world.
just the one. Yeah. Well, no, the only one left in the world is the Australian ufologist.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, but
Well, in the
anyway,
United
look up on
States.
Yep, yep, for sure. And so look up all the information on the internet. And Tim, I will be talking to you and our listeners in another week.
Good night, all.
You've been listening to Exploring the Bizarre with hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz. They're taking back the night by jetting non-stop across the cosmos in search of the truly bizarre and totally unexplained, with you as their co-pilot. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on Exploring the Bizarre and hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz, check out their KCOR Digital Radio Network page. Follow their YouTube channel at MRUFO 1100. Exploring the Bizarre.